Hey, I'm David, and today we're going to talk about location in choosing a school, standing out from other applicants, and how high should your SAT score be? Hey Paula, so I'm sure your mom loves you and she's just going to miss you a little bit next year. Don't let travel time influence your decision too much, and make sure to, I don't know if you've necessarily visited Middlebury, Dartmouth, UCLA, but geography maybe isn't the best reason to pick a school. And if you're, say, a sophomore or junior, trying to use that as a parameter right now to select a school, I think it's kind of a weak point, especially if you just look at the distance. You Google how far away, say, Hanover, where Dartmouth is, from New York. It's going to look a lot closer than LA, obviously. But consider travel time. It's a very easy flight for you if you're in New York City to get to UCLA, to get to LAX, Los Angeles airport. It's a very easy flight. You've got a lot of options. Whereas even though it's in the same area of the country, getting to Middlebury, getting to Dartmouth is going to require more effort. There are going to be fewer options. And your mother, honestly, might be forced into driving you there, depending on your need to go home, scheduling. Now, near, say, like spring break, holiday breaks, schools that are maybe more rural might have chartered buses to major cities. But if you just decide to go home on the weekend, it might not necessarily be an option for certain schools that are a little bit more remote. There's nothing against that, but if that's an important factor for you, don't just look at the distance between your home and the school. Consider the method and the method of travel that a lot of students take, and also the frequency that runs. So you might have a bus that runs maybe once a day for certain schools, whereas if you're going from major cities, even though it's a flight, and if you haven't flown a lot, it might seem like it's a big undertaking, but it might actually not take that long to get from your school to the doorstep of your home, even if it's on the other side of the country. Another thing to consider is that with travel time, once you're traveling, once you've dedicated half a day or a day to traveling, is there much difference between, say, 7 hours traveling and 10? Not really. You've kind of punted that day, and you've dedicated that day to reading a book or working on your computer, whatever it might be. So just a couple extra hours might not make a huge difference. So don't worry about it too much. And Paula, make sure you visited all the schools. Geography might play a role in the school's culture and the students there, but right now don't worry about it too much, and make sure you look at overall travel time and prioritize that over geography. So aside from perfecting every single step of the application process, which obviously is a part of a longer conversation, it's dependent on you, but just so I can give you some type of answer here, I would say be as genuine as possible, and look for guidance, but don't necessarily copy what other students have done. I'd say what's something that's underrated in a lot of applications is just the authenticity, and don't be afraid to help find your voice in the writing and express who you are. And I think part of being genuine is living in the gray area and letting that be reflected in just your writing, for example, understanding that there's a lot of nuance to issues, and there's nuance to who you are, and letting all that just come from a really genuine place. I'd say that's in short supply in a lot of applications. And so far, standing out, other than just being genuine, is there one magic solution to get into your top choice school? No, it's not that simple. There are hundreds of pieces that contribute to your application, starting from your freshman year, even before that. There are a lot of things that you can be doing, but I'd say all that needs to revolve around you just working as hard as you can and being as true to yourself as possible. Your SAT scores, all your scores, you should get as high a score as possible. It's not as though I'll say you want to get a 750 versus an 800 and your approach will be different. You're going to try to get the highest score possible, and that's obviously going to help you get into your top choice school. So ask some questions concerning the sufficient score on your subject test, pick the right subject test, and we can get into that. I think the literature test for a lot of students who are pretty strong with English is tough. I found if you're strong in sciences or history, those are relatively generous subject tests. A lot of schools that are, say, engineering schools or the business schools, if you're interested in econ, they might want to see a math subject test. So those are good questions, I would say. But so far as what score you should get the highest score possible. And that answer, obviously, that I'm giving you, I don't really know your situation. Say, if you already have a relatively high score on the ACT, SAT, and you haven't worked on any of your essays, and it's the summer before your senior year, and maybe your extracurricular activities aren't very compelling, do you need to study more to get a higher SAT score or ACT score? Well, in your case, then, no, you wouldn't. There are a lot of other things that are the priority right now. But just to look at your question, a sufficient score, I think you should prepare as much as possible. You already know the answer here. You're lucky enough to know the answer that higher score is better. And if you have a question on implementing how do we get to a higher score, I think that's a more focused question. But is an 800 better than a 700? Yes. Is a 700 better than a 650? Yes. If you only can get a 750 and you've taken the test 3 times, should you stress out? Should you try to spend time getting an 800 when there are other priorities? No. So it's going to be dependent on your situation, but as overall advice, try not to waste time asking questions that maybe already, just to try not to be too blunt here, try not to waste time asking questions that you already know the answer to. Say, is an 800 better than a 750? Yes. How much will, another question that maybe doesn't really have much use would be, how much does increasing my score from say 700 to an 800, how much does that help me? Well, if I were to say it really helped you, or that it made all the difference, or if I had to somehow come up with like a hearsay percentage of the boost that it gave your application, which you can't really even do, would that really inform your studying at all? Not really. So I'm all for asking a great question, but sometimes the question is just a waste of time, and you already know the answer. Study, 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 study every day. Higher scores are better, but do you need a perfect score? No. So there's a lot of gray area in the process, and just so far as should you study more, it's not one of the gray areas. Yes, you should shoot for the highest score possible. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Keep sending me questions. If you're interested in more advice, feel free to visit my website, look in the description for some more great free resources and information on personalized coaching. I'm going to start doing these every single week, so keep sending me questions and I'll try to provide some brief answers in these videos. Thanks a lot. I'm David.